Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the National After School Association's Google Hangout on Critical Issues, which has been generously funded by the Robert Baum Foundation. My name is Sarah Hill, and I'm the host. The topic for this Google Hangout is libraries as partners in providing literacy during out-of-school time. We've selected a wide range of panelists who will discuss some of the key issues in this area from the point of view of a funder, practitioners, and library professional. Each panelist will respond to one question for 3 to 5 minutes, and then there will be the opportunity for the panelists to engage with each other in dialogue. This Google Hangout is recording and will be uploaded onto the NAA website, the National After School Association website, as well as the Youth Today Out of School Time Hub, along with some accompanying materials and resources. First, why is this topic important? According to a 1999 Wallace Foundation report, libraries play a key role in supporting the informational, educational, and literacy needs of young people in their community. In a survey of 1,500 libraries, many collaborated with schools and community-based organizations to provide organized reading activities. However, the study found that few of the libraries at the time structured their programs to target older youth, and few designed their services to engage low-income youth. This report resulted in a multi-year funding effort called the Public Libraries as Partners in Youth Development, whose participating libraries used the funding to invest in a wide range of services, such as employing youth, creating youth councils, and training staff on how best to use libraries or library services. The Wallace Project, and also in providing career awareness opportunities and new technology. So the Wallace Project was aligned with a national trend in which libraries are retooling and refocusing their services and programs. Libraries can be an important multi-purpose dedicated space for youth to engage in free choice learning that is generated by youth's interests and needs and what is most useful and compelling. This Google Hangout will explore how libraries collaborate with and are partners with out-of-school time youth organizations. In addition, it will explore how community-based youth organizations can create libraries in their own spaces and train staff on how best to use libraries or library services. I'm very excited to welcome our first panelist, Rachel Roseberry. She's a literacy coach in the National After Zone Alliance and National Public Library. Rachel is both a graduate student at Vanderbilt University and a youth practitioner and a part-time literacy coach for the National After Zone Alliance, which is funded in part by the National Public Library Foundation. Based at a library, Rachel has a unique perspective on the relationships that can be established and maintained between libraries and after-school programs. Rachel will be responding to the question, what are the challenges and benefits of partnering libraries with out-of-school time programs? And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for having me here. I just want to clarify, I think you said national, but I am the Nashville After Zone Alliance and the Nashville Public Library, just to clarify. And so I work in the Nashville After Zone Alliance. We have 43 sites in middle schools across Nashville. And just this past July 2014, the Nashville After Zone Alliance joined and became a part of the Nashville Public Library. So I'm really excited to talk about the challenges, but really specifically about the benefits that we've seen so far between the partnership. So the challenges, I think, when I first thought about this, is actually our programs are all in middle schools. And so our challenge is getting everyone in the same location. It's getting getting library resources and library staff and library programming out to our after-school programs, which are housed mainly in schools and a few community centers. And then, going the other way, getting our students, our middle school students, those older youth that you mentioned, many who are struggling readers, are struggling in school, getting them to the library locations and getting them to utilize our wonderful system here in Nashville, our branch libraries and everything they've got going on. So we've started to sort of look at ways that we can, bridge that gap. Nashville has this wonderful program called Limitless Libraries, where you can request books and they go out and they request books from the public library and they get delivered to your school. And we have added our after-school site coordinators to that list of educators that can request those books. So we're beginning to build small libraries of books from the public library in our program spaces. And we've started a Reading Mentors program where our branch librarians, children and teen librarians, are paired up with our after-school program sites to give book talks, talk about library services, and encourage our students to get back out to the libraries as well as bring library programming into the space. But this is something we're thinking about a lot, which is how to get everyone in the same space, whether that's at the library or the after-school program. So the benefit, obviously, is sort of related. It's when you get those two things in the same place, we see lots of, I think, really transformative literacy learning going on, whether we're talking about just independent reading on those books that students love, getting students engaged with books, giving them time to read. In our after-school programs, we have this built-in audience of kids who really can benefit from extended time with books and extended engagement with books. And when you get the resources of the library and people with a lot of knowledge about books in front of them, and we want to think beyond books as well. There's some wonderful stuff here in Nashville, Studio NPL, that maker space that we have going on in our main library, as well as several of our branches, where you're thinking about digital learning and digital literacies. We can bring that into our programs as well. So when you get all of them into the same space, we know access is important. And so I think we can really start to move our middle schoolers to being more engaged with reading, very broadly understood, engaged with writing. And we know that, in middle school, at least for us, we know that motivation tends to decline in lots of different learning, not just reading, but in lots of different ways. But we think that because after school doesn't really mean it's not school to our kids, we have a lot of capacity to keep that engagement high. By using some of these, traditional library resources like books, and some of these new ones like our maker spaces, our digital tools and resources, and obviously the great knowledge that librarians themselves bring. So getting those people who are passionate about books to serve as reading mentors for our kids. And the last thing I wanted to mention in terms of benefits is that, at least for us, we have a fantastic after-school staff, both our frontline staff and sort of our coordinating staff who oversee some of our zones, our geographic zones, which is how we're organized here in Nashville. And so we're able to help these, facilitate successful programming and successful relationships because of, we have such a strong structure in our after-school network. So there's lots of benefits to bringing those two entities together, and I'm just really excited about it and really, really passionate about both of them.
Thank you so much. Great food for thought. Our next panelist is Nia Amani Fields. She's an assistant professor and 4-H youth development educator at the University of Maryland Extension. Dr. Fields' focus has been to work towards the positive development of children, youth, families, and communities. She has created and coordinated several youth and community programs and initiatives within New York, Delaware, and Maryland, while working with organizations including Civic Works AmeriCorps and the Baltimore City Department of Recreation and Parks. She published an article engaging library partners in after-school programming in the journal After School Matters, which described the valuable role libraries can play in the out-of-school time context. Nia will be responding to the question, what resources do libraries bring to the out-of-school time programs and out-of-school time programs to libraries?
Thank you, Sarah. And just to clarify, I am working on my doctorate, so thanks for the motivation, but not quite there yet. But thanks for that. Like Sarah said, I work with the University of Maryland Extension 4-H Youth Development Program, and I am primarily responsible for Baltimore County's 4-H programming. And I've been here for about 9 years, and we have been partnering with our library system for about that long. So it's one of our longest partnerships here in the last decade in Baltimore County. Most people know 4-H for their traditional club programming work, and that is certainly still one viable way that we reach youth across the country. However, we are increasing our outreach efforts in counties, and one way that we can do that is through after-school time programming with partners where members currently exist or where young people currently congregate. So one thing that the library offers is a safe place where students and youth already are. So they have the facility there. They typically have some type of structure where young people are hanging out in the after-school hour, sometimes structured time, sometimes unstructured time. But they do typically have an audience that's ready for an exciting program to be. Libraries have been very helpful in joint programming because we can do some cross-marketing efforts. So while they target their typical audiences through their newsletters, bulletin boards, and that type of thing, we can also target new audiences to join the library or to come to the library setting for out-of-school time programming. So doing that cross-marketing effort has been proven to be successful on both of our ends. They also have strong connections to the community. Because they are located throughout any given jurisdiction, they typically have close relationships with the schools in their area, the senior centers where they might be able to recruit volunteers, and other type of group homes and types of settings that are near the library, recreation centers as well. And in our county, a lot of the libraries are in the same facility or near a facility that is another community type event, whether it's a community type of setting, whether it's a community center, senior center, and sometimes even a school. So that's been beneficial as well. We have worked together over the years on joint funding efforts. So having multiple partners jointly write a grant obviously is helpful than all fighting for similar funds within a given jurisdiction. So our local management board in the past has funded our programming efforts, and other out-of-school time funding sources has provided funding for us to deliver programming in the library setting. And then one way we've utilized the library resources is connecting those books and digital resources that were previously mentioned to the content area that we're bringing to the program. So in relationship to program content, 4-H is able to provide research-based curricula. So we focus on 3 major programs across the country, being science, engineering, and technology, healthy living, and citizenship. And there's tons of curricula in each of those program areas, and we've been able to provide that content and curriculum to the library setting. So we've offered professional development opportunities to the librarians so that they feel more comfortable and prepared to deliver programming content. And we've also offered professional development in the best practices around youth development. Because most librarians don't have an education background, we help them in that area so that they feel comfortable in delivering programming to young people. We also provide some research-based evaluation tools so that we can assess the skills and knowledge learned from the participants in the 4-H program setting at the libraries. So we've used this in multiple ways. One, to assess the outcomes, but then also to find out what the interests and needs are of the young people at the library so that we can intentionally target those older audiences that may be missed at some of those library structured type programs. So some of the things that we've done with the libraries include ongoing after-school program series, whether it's weekly or monthly, where they're sequentially working on a program area to increase knowledge in a specific area. We've also partnered with the library during their technology weeks or their STEM weeks, when they have a particular week where all the libraries across the county are promoting and fostering increased interest in technology and science. So we would come in to partner with them either to physically lead a session or to train their staff to lead a session. We've also worked with them during their spring breaks or mini summer camps that they offer, again offering those sequential learning opportunities during a given time or season. And then some of the libraries have teen groups or teen hangouts that we have also collaborated with. So it's not always establishing a new program, it's sometimes also just piggybacking off of an existing program that they already have there already. And then there have been opportunities for service projects again, so working with the teens at the center to identify some needs in their community that they can work on together through a service project. So having that connection to the community has been successful and important as well. So it's been a great partnership with the library. We definitely have found ways to mutually benefit from a partnership. And you all probably know that is the best way to sustain a program partnership, is to find ways that both sides can benefit and improve the services and outcomes of each other's program.
Thank you so much, Nia. And we'll be getting back to probably all of you when we have our Q&A and kind of engage in more of a dialogue between each other. Our next panelist is Chris Shoemaker, who, besides being the Young Adult Library Services Association's president, serves as director of the Rye Free Reading Room in Rye, New York, and has extensive experience with partnering with community-based organizations around literacy. Chris will be responding to the question, how can we strengthen or promote these types of partnerships between libraries and out-of-school time programs?
Great. Thank you so much for having me today and the opportunity to talk about libraries and after-school program partnerships. I have always loved working with other organizations, in part because libraries have had one sort of mission in the past, and we've really been working hard both in YALSA and in other ways to transition from just being the repository of books to being a place where after-school providers and members of the community can come in and discover and learn and grow. So one of the biggest things that libraries can do to promote partnerships and to work with other after-school organizations is through sheer numbers. There are over 17,000 public libraries in the United States. They might not all be gigantic structures, and they might not all have cutting-edge maker spaces, but there's a space in the community, so that's definitely something that nonprofits can take advantage of. And as Nia mentioned, they're already drawing members of the community to that space, so there's a built-in audience that can be worked on. Libraries are also able to promote resources to other after-school organizations and nonprofits. So not just the resources that we have on their shelves are on our shelves, but ways that those resources can be incorporated into other programs' curriculum. I've had great experience pulling from items in the library's collection, whether it's digital images or ancient research, and just being able to give those to organizations and watch them become incorporated into their learning goals. With YALSA, we are eager to share our best practices and other resources. The brand new teen programming guidelines are out, and they incorporate outcomes-based evaluation and several of those key things for nonprofit organizations and after-school organizations that have been using for a while. So libraries are catching up in terms of how we look at what we do and what we do, so that way we make better partners and we're able to strengthen those relationships and those connections. We also have a variety of resources available through our wiki, and those are publicly available for people to draw on, so that way libraries can look at these best practices, and after-school associations can look at these things that libraries want to be doing, and realize that there's not such a big disconnect. Libraries are not just that place with books, and libraries are not just that place that do duct tape wallets and sushi candy and don't really tie into the overall education goals that fit in with most after-school programs. one of the other ways that libraries and after-school organizations work together is through partnership training. Libraries have extensive staff development programs, or they have those requirements, and being able to collaborate with an agency to offer training to all parties involved helps bring all those people who are interested in serving youth or their community up to the same skill level, and really just advances that mission and that part of outreach. We talked a little bit about communities, but libraries and after-school organizations are able to tie together those communities a lot closer, strengthen them, promote to different parts, and draw them together under a common space and in a common way. And libraries and after-school associations can get together and lobby for funding or for additional resources, for space, get connected with policymakers and advocates, and that way it's not just two single voices shouting, it's one combined voice with a larger audience behind it. So those are some of those strategies that we've used in order to increase the strength and effectiveness and promote after-school partnerships and library partnerships.
Thank you so much. So our final, last but not least at all, is Ann Lawrence, who's the program officer at the Robert Bound Foundation, an over 25-year veteran in the literacy nonprofit world. Ann, as program officer at the Robert Bound Foundation, oversaw an innovative multi-year funding project in which libraries were created in community-based after-school programs, and the staff were then provided with technical assistance and training on how to use the materials and how to integrate them into their curriculum. So I'd like to turn it over to Ann now.
Thank you, Sarah. The Robert Bound Foundation funds out-of-school time programming in the 5 boroughs of New York City. And we are different in that we also do a lot of capacity building with our grantees, especially around literacy, since that's what we fund. We fund literacy and out-of-school time. And one of the things we have learned over the years is that many of the staff that are a part of after-school programs really do not have the training necessary to do literacy activities. And so over the years, you know, the other part of it is, besides the training, is they do not necessarily have the books. And if they do have the books, like when I visit, you know, programs for the first time, I'll find books, but many times children can't find the appropriate books and staff don't know their books. And they don't really know how to use them in activities around their libraries. So one of the things that the foundation has done is they have developed a project. It's a year-long project where we work with 12 programs, and each program gets a $5,000 grant to buy, you know, not only books, but, you know, now we have digital equipment and other sorts of, like, you know, beanbag chairs to make the space comfortable. And we also, you know, give each of the staff that are participating in the project a stipend. And what is involved in this is that these 2 staff from 12 programs meet on a monthly basis for 3 hours. And in that 3 hours, they not only learn and experience reading and writing strategies around libraries, they also work on action research questions around what they want to focus on in the library. Like some are interested, well, how do you develop a culture of reading at your program? How do you get staff engaged? How do you get the kids engaged? And so we support them in surveying their staff, their kids, their parents, finding out what their interests are, what their ideas are, and helping them really be involved in the library development itself. And in addition, we also provide on-site individual support. Like Suzanne will go and help do some professional development with the staff. So we really find that it's important not only to engage the staff in the monthly meetings, but also at the programs. And we also bring in the either coordinator or executive director to twice a year to really hear about what staff are doing, in addition to talk to them about how they can support their staff in developing their library and developing an infrastructure, which is really important, and ways to maintain it. Do you get kids to be interns? Do you bring in volunteers? Because if you don't maintain a library, which I'm sure Chris and others of you can tell about, is then people can't find things. So you need to have someone that's the point person for the library. So the other thing that I think is really critical in the way we do our professional development and support our programs is that we really find out from them what works and what doesn't work. So each year our project looks a little different. Some programs have been involved for 3 years, and their needs have changed over this time. One of the things that more programs are interested in now is really engaging staff in professional development. What kind of professional development do you do with staff to help them learn about the books in their libraries and to figure out ways to do projects around their libraries? So I think that one of the things I can say as the program officer and as a funder, what I really think is essential is that that there would be funding over time. It'd be general operating. That capacity building is not, you don't change things in a day. And I think also partnerships are very important. That's one of the things we talk a lot about, is that a lot of programs don't have the space for the library they would like. So how can they utilize libraries in the community? How can they partner with them? What are, one of the things I have usually found is that our after-school programs do not take advantage of the libraries in the community. They haven't really developed relationships with them. And also the schools, too, because many schools have libraries. So, but I think essentially it's really important to engage, the participants in professional development. And, oh, excuse me, let me just turn that off. Okay, sorry about that. Anyhow, that it's really important to have a learning community where people are sharing what they're doing and how they're doing it with other people in programs, and that they can also develop the support that having a library and doing literacy activities really involves.
Great, thank you so much. So now I'm wondering if anyone has a question for any of the panelists. If you do, just raise your finger and take your turn. Okay, so actually I have a question. So I'm working at an after-school program in a very kind of distressed community, and the staff that I work with are kind of typical for after-school program staff. A lot of them are young, in college. A lot are community work, people who live in the community, and we've been changing our approach to a more project-based approach where they have to, find resources, share resources with the children and youth, and engage a lot more with reading, writing, and technology. And a lot of them, who want to do, for example, a poetry project, have issues with reading and writing of their own. So they may have had very bad school experiences, not really exposed to a lot of kinds of literature, and I'm wondering if that's something you've encountered and what you might, what kind of recommendations you might suggest for working with these staff. So would anyone like to respond? I don't. Annie, okay, go ahead.
Okay. This has really been an issue, something that I have struggled with over time. It's not like you can hand out dense research articles and supporting blah, 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 But I think most important is that they experience really positive reading and writing themselves. So in all of our professional development, they do the reading and writing. This year we're focused on writing, and we're producing a publication of all the participants writing around their name and their culture. And so they actually are doing the process, and then once they've experienced this, and they have a positive experience, they'll be able to be more enthusiastic about what they do and how they do it. So I think that's important. And I encourage them to go back to their programs, and we support them in doing professional development that does the same sort of thing, where they read the actual, the books that they have in their library, share, and they talk about them. They do book talks. And they have their own book groups themselves. It's difficult because many of the staff are part-time, but I think that if a program is going to be good, they have to find and develop the time for their staff.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I was having trouble with my microphone. I just wanted to comment because this is something that we're just building. Like I said, the Nashville After Zone Alliance just partnered with the Nashville Public Library less than a year ago. But a couple things that came to mind. Certainly there are some similarities. A lot of our staff are part-time, are very young, and don't have a lot of experience or background in education specifically, or even working with kids at all. But I think a strength of our organization is that the Nashville After Zone Alliance had a baseline, and has for its past 5 years of existence, of professional development around program quality that we've been doing consistently for the past 5 years. And so now that we're adding on this literacy component, our staff, even though there's lots of turnover, I mean, there's a foundation that we've been able to build on with our professional development, to where our staff feels comfortable, and the expectations for professional development are already there, and we can start to integrate, how to infuse reading and writing into your program sort of on top of that existing structure. And we've also found, and this is particularly my role sort of as the practitioner, is that the sort of site-specific coaching and modeling has been really helpful for our site staff. So I go out into our programs and model, over several days, or even just a one-day activity, whether it's read alouds, whether it's project-based activities, whether it's writing activities. We have a whole system-wide writing contest. So sort of working and getting them jump-started on the actual writing process. How to brainstorm and organize, and really going through, modeling for our site staff how they should model for our students, in after schools programs, some of those basics of educational sort of, pedagogical knowledge that we have. I'm in a reading education program here at Vanderbilt, and I've been a fourth grade teacher, so I come from the school background, a little bit of a school background, and I think it's been really helpful to bring some of those really strong pedagogical traditions into the after school space.
Great. Does anyone else have a comment or a question for any of the panelists? Don't be shy.
I was going to ask, just sort of for anyone, we have been doing a lot of, having libraries do a lot of outreach to our programs because our kids are in schools. Our students are, their sites are at schools. But I think we are, I wouldn't say struggling, but we're thinking about, or don't quite know how to get our students back into the libraries. So if anyone had, ways to, what sorts of strategies should we be working on to get our students from our after-school programs back into the libraries themselves. I know we're already doing that with Limitless Libraries. Our students can request books from the library and it comes to their school, and that's all fantastic. But I know there's lots of great library programming at our libraries that I want to think about getting more kids to. So, yeah.
So we talked a little bit about some strategies in the article that Sarah mentioned earlier, but when we first started our partnership with Baltimore County Public Libraries, they had just completed a survey of their teens, And they did it in, I believe, 7 different sites to find out what interests they had, and they chose a few different areas. They might have did some focus group discussions, I believe, but I know they did a paper survey to identify what their needs and interests were. And they built a program around their interest. And we called it For Youth, by Youth, because we really wanted their buy-in. They designed the program by way of this survey and by way of having conversations with teen groups and that type of thing that existed at the libraries to find out what would bring them to the library. Some common themes at the time were workforce readiness, computer applications and technology, leadership, community service, and those types of things. And community service was interesting. In our county, in our state, actually, all high school students have to complete a certain number of community service hours to graduate. So we were able to tie some things in with the programs there. But really getting that youth buy-in has really proven to be successful for any kind of sustainable program. If they help design the program, they're more likely to have ownership of the program and be willing to come out. So again, the same way you find mutually beneficial relationships with partners, the same thing you can do with youth participants also. And there's been fluctuations. You know, you have sports, you have working conflicts and that type of thing. But having that buy-in has been somewhat successful for us over the years.
I just wanted to say really quickly back to that we do have a really strong teen focus at the National Public Libraries. We have fantastic librarians and spaces. I think I should have mentioned specifically middle school students is who we are working with, and we know we have a lot of resources for our younger kids, and there are lots of fantastic resources for teens, and sort of figuring out where to fit our middle schoolers, you know, our 5th through 8th graders here in Nashville into that is something we're thinking about. But I really appreciate your point.
One of the strategies that's worked for some libraries that I've worked with in the past have been rotating events or culminating events and teasers. So having the library present at an offsite location and then sort of as a sneak peek of what the larger program will build up to. And so that way there's that engagement piece that Nia was talking about, and it builds on their interests. And it also is not such, because they've had the opportunity to see or experience it hands-on or to hear from somebody, it's not just the dry copy, because you're always going to run out of space either on social media or on flyers or just doing word of mouth in trying to communicate why this program is amazing or engaging. The other piece is sort of building off that engaged student and transitioning them into a mentorship role. So if it's a project that can be tweaked or moved, we had a program where we had middle school students alternating between the school and their after-school program, and they designed a video game based around local history and the library's collections, and then the students who created it brought it to the library, recruited their friends to come in and led them through a playthrough experience. So they were able to show off their expertise and the library through a very fun way, whereas we as the library staff would not have necessarily been able to pull in as many students because we don't have those peer connections. And so that's another strategy that might be worth exploring to build your connections.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to call this to an end right now, sensitive to the time, and I want to thank everyone for your participation. We will be uploading this YouTube dialogue onto the Youth Today YouTube channel, as well as we'll be embedding the link into the NAA, National After School Association website, as well, and also the Youth Today Out of School Time Hub. We will be putting together a handout with all the references that you guys mentioned, so don't forget to send it to me after this call, this Google Hangout. So I want to thank you all very much for coming, and I'm going to be signing off now. Have a great day. Bye now.